Everyone together. Gail's chair, vice chair.
59.
Oh, secretaries. Yes. Happy about it. We don't worry. Yeah.
I came back here. Right?
I know it is. Say it up here, guys. I don't know what I do.
I was like, I think it was really weird. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask you about that. I think it was that.
8:05.
Okay, good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending our May 8th, 2024 DDA meeting. And we will call the meeting to order. And Becky, if you could do a quick roll call.
Sure. Matt,
Here.
Cora, here, Gail,
Here.
Nikki, here, Jody, here, Sarah, here, Margaret is in Spain, Chuck. I think is online, but he won't be able to vote. Rocky. And so we have a quorum.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, excellent. We have a quorum. So the first thing before we get into the agenda items, in front of all of you, there has been a request by the staff to add an item to the agenda, and that item is going to be, we've had 2 requests for from the Chamber of Commerce is one to support the sidewalk sale in the amount of $500. And then the Harvard Springs Historical Society has also asked us for the blessing of the fleet to provide $500 for the basic is the flags that we use on all of our retail and restaurant stores during the blessing of the fleet. Gus will talk about that a little later. We're just going to drop that if it's approved, motion's approved, to it'll become 7A. It'll be right after
6A.
6A. Oh, okay. 6A. I thought it was in with the
Promotions?
with the promotions.
No, it's gonna be just before promotions. 6A.
Okay. So we are ready to begin. First thing we need to do is approve the consent agenda, both the minutes from our last meeting on April 10th and our monthly financial report. Has everyone had the opportunity to read over the minutes and review the financial report? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can I get are there any questions, concerns?
I don't think. I was just wondering what amount of assessment and TIF money we're still planning on for this year, annual year. But that's probably
That's more of
a
a
Nick question.
That's more of a Nick question. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, and we
Yeah.
will be talking about the tip coming up soon.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Excellent, motion passed. So we're going to move right into the meat of our agenda. And first thing, what I'd like to do is address the public. Are there any comments regarding items that are not on our agenda? And just please, if you have a comment, please just state your name and address, and just remember you're limited to 3 minutes. Any comments?
I'll speak real quick.
Okay.
Our Springs Police Department, I've got to leave. I got a meeting to go to, but want to make sure there is no concerns and that this will be the meeting June 1st regarding parking downtown with our new parking system. And so it'll be a little experimental on our end as well, but I just wanted to basically put that out there to see if anybody had any questions.
Okay. Any questions? No?
Will there be a notice sent to the businesses so they can share with the employees as far as? Or it has nothing to do with, you're not changing where
No,
they
the
could,
4 hours is still 4 hours, 3 hours is still 3 hours. Everything's the same.
got it,
What's changed is they have an actual system to chalk tires digitally instead of.
So,
An enforcement tool.
yes, a little better enforcement tool than we had the last couple of years, so.
excellent.
But and all the laws are still the same. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good meeting, thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're gonna move on to discussion and action regarding merchants walkway update. And Becky, I'm going to pass this. Oh, I have a different. Do you have another agenda? Oh, I use, I'm gonna sit by you.
Yeah, are you good?
Yeah, that's why mine was off.
Maybe you had the one that we talked about.
I think so, that's the one I have.
I'm
So
sorry.
that, I'm sorry. So it is, okay, it's the, discussion action items regarding the Emmett County TIF plan.
As you know, the city has been negotiating with the county, now for several years on this, and it seems that there's been some resolution. Thank you very much, Victor, and for Jim Raymond for perseverance. Jim is here today and Victor is here today also, to answer questions about this. This is very monumental to going forward, that there will be some money, that the DDA can use to actually implement the items that are in their plan. And it's my recommendation that the DDA board vote to approve this, and then it will have to go forward. The next step would be for city council to approve it and, excuse me, and also the county. You did get in your packet the resolution that is on the screen too, if we need to refer to it. And I also included in the packet the plan so that you could all see what I know you're familiar with it, but some more than others, you can all see what things would be able to be accomplished with this sum of money as we go forward. So Jim, if you'd like to take over, thank you.
All right, it's actually like a convo between Victor and me. But after Victor had a significant meeting with the principals of the county, that's their attorney and the county administrator back in perhaps March. And kind of, they had some issues, but primarily kind of reached tentative agreement. And then that was kind of solidified, if you will, crystallized into a written agreement, which is before you today. If you may recall, we met with you back in January and kind of, we actually presented a memo to you on what the context of that settlement would be, that we were striving for. And I'm pleased to report that we were able to achieve those objectives, which essentially were that there would be a 50% split between the county and the DDA of captured tax revenue through 2038. The sharing would begin in 2025. The county's captured revenues would be used for the improvement projects that are specified in the DDA's amended development plan. Could not be used for service programs. So basically, physical improvements would be the limitation on that. The county does not have the right to earmark specific projects or anything of that nature. There's no further control over the DDA with regard to the projects that are selected and that are funded. There is a requirement that if any unused county TIF money would be returned to the county after 2038. So if you collected more money than you expended on construction projects or improvement projects, that difference would have to be refunded in 2039. So in essence, that's what the agreement says. And so I can think at this point about Victor offer his thoughts on this.
No, but Jim summed it up well. After, one thought is, after 2038, this can is probably be reopened again. But our agreement is silent to what happens after 2038. So this is not a permanent fix, but it's, during the TIF plan through 2038. As you know, this has been probably going on for 6 years plus, so, yeah, 6+ years. I've negotiated with 3 different county administrators and, it hasn't been easy, and I don't think either side's completely happy, but it's a compromise. It's the only way I think we're gonna go forward without a lawsuit. So I do recommend, taking this compromise. Get the money we can get.
What's the amount of money we're talking about?
Well, I don't know, I don't recall, Becky, what next year's capture is supposed to be from the county, but I think it's gonna be $50,000-$60,000, so, or more. So half of that going forward each year, so at least $30,000 next year, I think.
I think he has,
We have a schedule.
there was a schedule.
Yeah, I remember the schedule.
here, Showed for
Yeah.
2025, actually 2026. It is would be 42,000.
Yeah. What we'd be getting. So
Who determines? Who determines if we haven't spent their portion of the money on what they designate? I mean, I know that they have to approve what we're utilizing the money for.
So the way the contract is structured is that we will have a separate line item or separate fund just with the county's money. And then, when it comes to those improvements, projects in our development plan, that's all we can use that money for. So if we haven't spent that money, and I think in there's provisions to send over every year,
There's a report
a report.
that Nick has to submit to the county.
Which
So,
I think would be problematic with the bigger projects that we have. Especially since they're in our development plan, merchants walkway, lighting, streetscaping. I don't think that would be.
What if they don't approve it? What if they don't approve
They
it?
don't-
no, they don't get to.
They don't get to
specific
approve.
projects. They
It's
just,
whatever in
as
our,
long as, yeah.
It's in the development. plan.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, so if you look at
Just
page,
double checking.
if you look at page 14, it lists in detail everything that's in our development plan. That is part of that. So existing improvements, so merchants walkways, streetscape, sidewalks and maintenance, lighting, recreation, parking, public restrooms, bike path and enhancements to downtown. So it's a pretty broad scope of. Yeah, amazing.
For some reason I had it in my head, they still had to approve
No.
it.
There is a provision too in there that if the DDA plan, development plan is amended to include some different project, that the county will consider it, so, but we kind of felt that the scope of the existing plans are pretty broad, and we could, most of what we would envision the DDA would be involved with would be covered under those, kind of broad categories.
Yeah.
And going forward, I can see monthly financials coming to you in 2 different ways. You have one that reflects the TIF fund and one that reflects the special assessment fund. And Nick and I can work on that for the budget this year. That it'll look different, but it will be very accurate.
I just have to, one quick comment, because I've been here since the start of all of this between Kathy and Rachel and Margot and a lot of people that said it couldn't be done. And just thank you so much to Victor and Jim for being diligent and being able to negotiate and to get, I mean, like you said, every party may not be happy, but it's absolutely incredible that anything was done. So absolutely incredible. And thank you so much, because it's a huge amount of money to be able to help downtown Harbor Springs.
And for Kathy, we probably would have given out if she had
Yeah.
kept pushing them.
Yeah, so no, like seriously, thank you so much. This will be huge in making some of our projects be able to happen.
You're welcome. And I also think we should put some things out to the county administrator because
Yeah.
he's been very.
Yeah, he was,
open to.
he was the good cop too.
Yeah, so
Well, I watched it for years from across the way, and I have to congratulate you. This is a wonderful thing. Well, thank you very much.
fantastic.
Excellent. Any other comments? On that?
Saying how it
Anyone, motion to approve?
Wow. I would motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Second, excellent. Okay, we'll do a vote.
Cora,
Yes.
Nikki,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Gail.
Yes.
Look, everybody, all in favor?
I,
Unanimous.
Excellent.
Could we get
Wow.
one further, just motion to authorize, Gail, the chairperson, to sign the draft once it has been approved by the county and the city, and that Cora, as the vice chair, could, attest to her signature. We get a motion to that.
A motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, on to the next. Let's see what-
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to lean on you. So now we're gonna do the.
Make it easier.
The discussion regarding the planning commission updates to the city sign ordinance.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jeff Grimm is here this morning. He's going to talk to us about some, new, the planning commission is looking at the sign ordinance and looking at making some changes. And, he would like, because this is, especially the CBD, this directly affects the retailers. And he would like some background and some, input from all of you on the changes that they're talking about making. So Jeff, I'll let you,
Absolutely.
we can scroll down and you can go maybe, I listed all the signs and what you're thinking about doing, or what
Sure.
is.
It's becoming a lot more commonplace now to pull your signage regulations out of the zoning code and have it be its own separate ordinance under a city power, which would be under the city code, which provides us a little bit more ability to regulate should we need to. Also, there have been some legal discussions about certain types of signage and how we can regulate signage as well. One key thing, there was a court case about 10 or 15 years ago that tells us that we cannot look at the content of a sign to determine what regulations we would apply. For instance, the only way to determine that it is a realtor sign is to look at the content of that sign. So we can't really have separate regulations for realtor signs from a construction sign, for instance. So we have to basically say, you know, here's the signage that's at a residential home, what's going to apply to that? So we realized that we needed to make some adjustments to how we have our signage regulations. Going through the zoning code process was a prime opportunity for us to pull that out and have it be a separate ordinance and address some of these issues. We're really not proposing to make very many big changes. You know, I think that for the most part, our signage language will remain similar to what it is as far as the number and placement. However, getting feedback from you, if, you know, to determine if that's appropriate or if you feel that there needs to be some changes to that, would be great. Right now, within the central business district, essentially a property can have up to 7 signs on the building. That's split between 2 different types or categories, I'll say. The first category is probably the main category. Most of our signage language is determined where we look at the width of the building as it fronts on the street. And we say that you get 75% of the linear footage of the building as square footage for signage. So as an example, a 20-foot wide building would have 15 square feet available for signage. That can be split up to as many as 4 signs, one of which could be a projecting sign. So a decent example of that would be WWare, where they have their projecting sign over their door, and then they've got their symbols on the windows, whatnot, and they've used, I think, 3 or so signs. One example of some of the other end that somebody could go would be where they could just take that square footage and just have one large sign, like Dressed. They have the big sign at the top of the building. So you can choose, you could use your signage on one, you could split it up with up to 4. One of those 4 could be the projecting sign. A key feature to note in the code is Because that projecting sign is viewable from both sides, we count both sides towards the signage. So if you have a 6 square foot projecting sign, that would count as 12 of that 15 square feet available for signage. We know that that's fairly limiting for businesses that have a very narrow building. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we adjusted the signage regulation to, in addition to those 4, we added on 3 more that don't count against the square footage limitation, but we regulate them specifically in each of their sizes directly. So in addition to those 4, you have the potential for 2 more, what we've called pedestrian signs, which would be a sign limited to 1 square foot inside or inside, excuse me, with the idea that it's for, you know, pedestrians walking down the street in their view. The other thing that we specifically addressed was 6 square feet for some type of message board. And we've been pretty open in what that is kind of designed to entail. A lot of businesses have those aluminum corkboard boxes where they can put various things in. That would be one idea of a message board. Some businesses have their menus displayed. That'd be another idea. Excuse me, sorry. And then I've even been more broad in my interpretation of that, where some retail businesses will just have, let's say, a section of their glass storefront where they put various messages that might change, you know, whether they're having a sale or things like that. I just asked them to limit that to 6 feet in size. Prior to us including those extra 3 signs, we did not regulate any window decals or stenciling in the windows. After including those, we did start regulating those. The one change in the new code is we're looking at backing off on the number of signs, and instead then not including window stenciling and decaling in the signs and the square footage limitation, and changing so that anything that you would have in your window that would be considered signage would be limited to a percentage of that window size. I think that frees it up a little bit more and probably also encourages businesses to, you know, if they're redesigning their storefront, to have lots of windows. Because I think that, you know, I think everybody agrees that that brings a more lively effect to the downtown. So the one question, I guess the big question I would ask is, what percentage of the windows do you think is appropriate to allow a business to have signage, you know, with their window stenciling, you know, that would be included in there? This does include realtors with their realtor listings in the windows. So I will have to have a discussion with them directly because this will affect them. So your feedback on any aspect of signage downtown would be greatly appreciated.
Can I ask a question really quick about the realtors? So, I mean, this would possibly say that they can't cover their entire windows with listings, correct?
Yeah, whatever percentage we come up with,
That would be
they'll
what
be
they would
limited
have
to that.
Okay.
And I will certainly reach out to them directly
Yeah.
as well, because we want their feedback.
No, it's an interesting thought. I never would have thought of their windows as well. I mean, that makes
Well-
sense, but it makes sense to, I mean, it makes 100% across the board, to be fair to them, and I understand, and it should be all the same, and it makes sense. I just never would have thought of something I don't think about, I guess.
We had a discussion at the planning commission probably 4 or 5 years ago on this. Prior to that, my understanding from talking to a couple other zoning administrators was that, you know, if you have a retail store selling clothing and they have mannequins in the window with, you know, with clothes and whatnot, that's a display of goods, not necessarily a sign. And so I've kind of taken a stance, you know, up until that point in time, that the realtor listings was more of a display of goods as opposed to signage. We had some concerns and we had some complaints around that time, which led us to get an opinion from Jim Raymer, the city attorney. And he determined at that time that those realtor listings were in fact signage and not a display of goods. So that basically led us to needing to take that into consideration, signage. So.
Any other comments?
I mean, I guess I think as a business owner, I mean, I'm trying to think of like what the sensible amount would be. I mean, I guess another question I would have is it each specific, like a percentage of each specific window or a percentage of all of your windows?
That's a good question. I would,
My business has a lot of windows, so.
yeah. That is a good question, and I think we can work that either way.
Because I mean, I think that a specific example is I have gone back and forth with Jeff about something that what I was trying to do when I was trying to add window details on. I have a existing window that is extremely high and it's also tinted. So it's really hard to do anything with. So I was imagining putting some sort of a decal covering it because right now it just lets light into my business, but it doesn't actually allow for, no one can really, it's over 10 feet tall. So no one can really like get up in there and see anything. So I guess that, yeah, that kind of determines it. But I mean, when you're thinking of people walking by, if they're going to cover their windows with everything, then you're not actually gonna be able to see their display of goods or what they're selling in it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't really make too much sense for people to cover, you know, their windows completely, obviously, for anyone who's trying to sell something inside, unless they're just trying to use it for advertising. So
But there's still a maximum.
Well, yeah, but I think that's what they're asking.
they're asking
like,
what percentage it would
What
be.
percentage?
Right.
We,
Right.
I mean, what I went through, I mean, I remember when Jeff and I worked on for my sign, because I wanted a two-sided sign, and at the time they had two signs. They had the freestanding sign that I have in front of my business, there was actually two of them, which at the time we didn't know wasn't legal. So we ended up taking one of them completely off, and then I have a two-sided sign. So, I mean, I thought with my building, I got more than enough. I mean, I didn't even use all of as big of a sign as I could have used in front of my building.
The problem is also with how the difference in buildings, like I have doors that front the same street, kind of.
Yeah.
But I have two doors, so that was a hard thing for me as well, was trying to get signage for both those. Like I have a huge amount of wall space, but actually a very small amount of frontage.
Are we in line with, I mean, do we know what the surrounding towns, like Charlevoix and Petoskey, what they're?
I have not reached out to them. I know we're working with John Angeli with Beck and Raider, and they do work in other towns, so I can confer with him on what other towns are doing.
I would just be curious to see so then we could be in line, because I mean, I wouldn't want to see where every business has just an immense amount of just signage in front of, like, I don't want.
Like an advertisement, like a banner. I mean, it would
Yeah.
cover like the entire window. It'd be
Yeah.
basically like I mean, I don't want to see that either, but
Yeah,
Um,
what would be, and I don't even know how to go about answering what would be fair without knowing what the other.
what other business, I mean,
Other cities have.
I also think of what's sensible too. I mean, I think that if people want to put a bunch of words in or something, that's kind of their prerogative there, but they're not gonna necessarily sell things if you can't see what's inside.
Is there
Like, it's not
an
necessarily sensible.
amount that the planning commission had in mind in the discussion of it?
John threw in as a placeholder, and this may be what some other communities are using, I think it's 15% of the window spacing. Which I think is it probably works for most retail stores, however, I think that's very limiting for the realtors.
Yeah.
So I imagine that the end result is gonna be a higher number than 15%.
Would there be a way to allow realtor, like, split up the type of business? And allow realtors to be in a different class versus, or would that be impossible?
How do you make that judgment call without referring to the content of the sign? That's the difficulty that we have right now. We can regulate the size of signs, the location on the building of where they put the signs, the material that they use.
Yeah.
How they light them.
Yep.
But the difficulty is, in order to make a call like what you're asking for, we have to look at the content of
And you
that
can't do
business
that.
or what they would put in their sign.
Well, there's a potential, I see where you're going with this, so there's a potential to ask, maybe we can confer with John, because we have a list of uses in the CBD, and so maybe we're saying if you're a restaurant use, you're allowed this much percentage.
Okay.
If you're a,
That's
but
what I meant.
realty is though combined with, I don't know what they're combined with under the,
I think it's just under office.
it's under office, but there might be a way that way by use, so not by
We can-
sign, but by use.
Maybe talk
Certainly
with,
check and ask that question.
maybe see if that would be, you know, if you fall into services or if you fall into retail or if you fall into restaurants, because obviously everybody's signage is a little bit different. Their signage needs, and maybe and especially because I don't want to limit, I mean, people stop and look in front of the windows for realtors all the time. And I don't think that what they're doing, I think would be different. At least I view it differently with their windows being covered up, would be very similar to like, to me, dressed, having their clothing display in their window. So maybe getting those answers would be helpful, and us having, at least for me, it would be more helpful for me to have more feedback for you if I knew those answers.
Because everybody's goods are different.
Yeah, well, and that means their signage is. would
I
be-
mean, I also think it comes back to how, you know, if this, we're talking one window versus all of the windows. 'Cause I mean, I think that I think 15% is, I'm like looking and thinking, okay, one of those little windows, like one of those windows on the door, what 15% of that is, wouldn't even be legible unless you were up close to it.
Yeah.
You know, even if it was both of it would be very, I mean, if that was someone's like front door of their business and only had a small window in it, it would be very hard to read unless you're up close to it for a lot of people. So I think that 15% is also really small just across the board.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing I'd like to ask. Right now, I mentioned that we base the square footage of signage availability on the frontage that you have in the street. That's specifically for the street that you face. So we do not take into consideration any extra signage for buildings that front on Main, but also have frontage on a side street. So like the library building is a great example. There's the fun shop in there. Their signage is based on their street face on Main. But then they also have that large side street at Gardner Spring.
Spring.
So they also have that frontage on that side street. They do not have an extra allowance for any signage for that side street. Specifically for, there's the library entrance on the side. They have a small, signage that's basically just directional sign to say library entrance here. But there really isn't any signage allowance for more signage because it's all been used by the front of the building. So the one question is, do you want to allow some type of addition to the square footage for signage for buildings that have that, you know, frontage on a side? Maybe at a diminished ratio so that we don't all of a sudden explode with more signage, but to provide some of those businesses some opportunity. The other thing that we don't take into consideration, which 10 years ago when I started, we didn't have very much of, I think it's becoming more common now, is to have the second floor use transitioning from residential use to some type of office. And now we have those businesses asking for signage as well. Right now, the way that our signage language works, if there's multiple businesses in one location, they have to share that square footage. So if one business is used half the signage available, then there's only so much left for the next business. And I basically leave that up to the owner of the building. I have them sign off on the signage application that they're aware that if I own a building that's 20 feet wide and, you know, half of it is used by, you know, Craig Ryan and the other half is used by the Rocking Horse. If Craig Ryan is in first and they use 75% of all the signage, only 25% is left over. So I have the owner of the buildings, you know, say, are you comfortable with this business using this, knowing that all that's left over for the other business there would be this. And now if we add on that there could be someone on the second floor.
Yeah, like our store, technically, there's 3.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the basement, the upstairs and our store. So you're all sharing, we're all sharing, I guess.
We do have language that states that each separate business can have a projecting sign. But the total square footage for all the businesses together is limited by the building itself, not, there's no really anything extra for businesses. To some extent, I think that makes sense to help control the amount of signage you see downtown, especially if you have one business that historically has had 1 or 2 businesses or one building with 1 or 2 businesses in it. If all of a sudden that explodes and there's now 6 different businesses, you now have that many more signs if you don't control it that way. But I think that it might be appropriate to find some way to have some extra allowance for businesses that are on the second floor. Obviously, they can't just throw up something on the second floor. It's not going to be very visible to people on the street. So we don't have to make these decisions right now. The planning commission is gonna weigh in on this. We're gonna further refine what we have and bring that back to the planning commission probably at least a couple times. So even if people just want to send me an email, even if it's just pictures of downtown buildings and these look good, these don't, you know, just as far as the congestion, cluttering of signage. And then we can kind of use those thoughts to help tailor what we use going forward for signage downtown.
And Jeff, were you talking about a subcommittee that was gonna work on this?
Yeah,
You
so the
said that
planning
one-
commission has basically made up a subcommittee. We found that it's easier to make progress at a quicker pace. When we can just float some ideas around and put something together. But they won't make any final decisions.
Right.
They will just make some recommendations. They'll bring that back to the planning commission. We'll base that off of the feedback that we're getting here today. Any feedback that we receive between now and when we make final decisions. But yeah, there will be a subcommittee of members of the planning commission. I think, are you on too? I'm not sure exactly.
Well, you sent a message to me
Yeah,
about it as well,
I
so.
believe you're on
Yeah.
it or welcome to join us for it, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. I think we have to define what the goal would be by changing the ordinance. Is the goal to help the retailers and merchants, restaurateurs? What's the goal? What prompted potential change in the
Well, I think
sign?
there were two things or maybe more that changed it. One specifically was pulling it out of the signage or pulling it out of the zoning code and having it be its own separate ordinance. That changes the nature of how we can enforce, should we need to enforce. It also cleans it up and makes it much easier for people to read. Right now in the zoning code, signage is spread, it's gotta be on probably 20 or 30 different pages.
Yeah, it was.
So
real tough.
if you need to find out what the regulations are for you, you don't know where to look. So one of the most typical conversations that I have with people is them trying to figure out what their limitations are and having that conversation. And it really comes down to me almost writing everything down and taking all of these different pages and putting it on one sheet for them. Under the way that this new signage ordinance will be, it's very clear. You know, if you're within the central business district, all of your signage regulations will basically be on one sheet of paper.
That would be amazing.
It would be really clear. It would
That
be
would
really.
It'd be very helpful. And that's one of the goals that we had in the changing of the zoning code was to have everything be clear and
Yeah.
concise and easily understood. So that we didn't have to spend as much time having discussions trying to explain
I
what.
mean,
what
9 years
is
ago, I
trying to
think
change.
I made 6 appointments with him. to
I
be able to
I know, I
figure
can
it
only
out.
imagine, me as well, I mean, we've had a lot of discussions about this, I can only imagine if you're doing this with everyone else.
Well, then at the
Actually-
time, there were 2 businesses in my building, and so I was like, well, I don't wanna take up, so, yeah, to make it easier for you, explaining to new businesses and making it easier for businesses
To
would be,
understand, yeah.
would be incredible, so. But yeah, I think just some more answers before
was-
I could weigh in would be helpful.
That was the real backbone of why we were making this change. I think also then the aspect of, we knew we needed to do a really in-depth revamp of the signage ordinance because of those, legal, rulings that we've heard over the last few years. None of it really has to change, right? I mean, at the core of it, we could still basically come up and say that the amount of signage that you used to get is going to be the same under the new code. It's just the way that we define it in the new code compared to the old. But the actual implementation of it does, if the goal is that you think that the signage that you have downtown is appropriate, then their language can stay the same or very close to the same. If you think that there would be some changes that could improve downtown, then we can try and implement those.
And Jody, I'll just say a goals that are defined in our master plan are really, balancing the two of keeping our downtown charming and attractive versus promoting businesses. So it's really striking a balance of those two things, which is what we're really doing here. How much window space, what percentage is gonna keep it attractive and charming while still allowing businesses to advertise their goods, so.
Changes nothing with neon signs, nothing like that, doesn't even.
In addition to the regulations with the, how much signage you can have on your building, we have two or three other things in addition. We have something specific for neon open signs, where they can be placed and what size they can be. We have another specific thing exempting the little red open flags that the chamber has. Those are the only flags that we permit in town. I think we allow, in addition, each business can have one kind of sandwich board sign. And we have rules regarding where they can be, how high they can be. We've got that whole idea of the 6-foot clear path for businesses, that making sure that those can't impinge on that. So.
Good. Yep. Excellent. Thank you for explaining all that.
No problem.
Yep, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you guys, wander downtown and you see something that you'd like to find a way for us to improve or help or whatnot, just let me know.
Would it be possible for the realtors to have a separate board, like a sandwich board, that has a flip of all the houses that are for sale? I hate the realtors to get stuck in this.
Well, but I think
Yeah.
them looking at to see if we can subcategorize would be, I would like to see that first before I see a sandwich board.
Something I've seen is when realtors get cut back, because this is common, that they paste their hole and then ordinance will allow it. So put an electronic monitor, TV screen on the inside, and it's just on a continual loop.
We really have to be careful with that, and we really need to try and avoid that, because again, you can't look at the content of a sign.
Yeah.
And so if you allow that, then you are also allowing any business to put any content on that TV monitor.
Yeah.
So you could end up saying, okay, we're okay with this. A great example is where a lot of businesses were replacing, let's say they had an old analog clock and they replaced that with a digital clock. If you permit that, you've now permitted a self-illuminated sign, which means you have also permitted sale, scrolling, buy now, all of that fun stuff. Because you can't look at the content.
So, and when you do allow that, then you have a traffic problem because it's distracting the
Right.
driver. So that's kind of where I was going with that, is that you have to watch out for that as well, because that. can
Exactly,
happen.
so if you permitted, and that's a great example, if you permit a TV, ads for like every 15 seconds, it scrolls to a new listing, right? You now have permitted any person to have any TV with any message on it. Because you can't look at the content of what's on that TV. And it could flash every 5 seconds, it could flash every 1 second. You lose that control,
So this is the extent that you have to go to really make sure the realtors get a fair shake.
right?
Any other comments? No? Okay. So we'll move on to 6A, not 7A. And in front of you, you have the request to look at supporting two events in Harbor Springs in the CBD. And the first one is from the Chamber of Commerce. They're asking for support of the sidewalk sales, which is in the amount of $500. And we have participated in that
Yes.
in years past. And they would really appreciate any assistance. And Bonnie, any comments?
No, other than we really appreciate that you all stepped up and helped with that last year in the past. We have run that at a loss. That's been a line item that's a negative for us. It's a cost to us and we do it because it's the right thing to do. So you supporting it's a double, it's fabulous because then we don't run it at a loss and it makes a ton of sense because it really is the downtown businesses. So, and you would be the only sponsor listed for that event, and I think that would be really nice for the DDA too, that just the publicity that you're supporting.
That's my next question.
Excellent. And then secondly, we have Beth here from the Historical Society. So Blessing of the Fleet is huge, and I'm gonna ask Beth to show and discuss the numbers, because when they shared them with me, I'm a volunteer at the museum. And it is staggering how much business that brings into Harbor Springs. And they are asking $500 donation from the DDA. You know how we have the flags at every building? They pass out flags to hang during the Fleet Week. And that will help offset some of the costs of those. So we have to do, I've seen some of them, I did a quick look, and some of them have been crumpled up and put in the basement, and they just don't look good. Some people throw them away at the end of the season. So I'm gonna let Beth talk about the blessing of the Fleet Week.
Yes, yeah, and just a super quick comment about windows, since we were just talking about them at the museum. Our entire lower level, all those front facing windows always have the blinds drawn because the UV light coming in damages artifacts, and so we always have protection on the windows. And so, for example, right now in our temporary exhibit gallery, those front 3 windows that are, quite large, have full banners down them advertising the exhibit that's inside behind them. So, I don't know, it's similar to like the Realtor, so just keeping that in mind as well, if we're considered part of that agreement. Anyway, just something to consider. But blessing of the fleet. So the blessing of the fleet, we are in our 12th year. And the blessing of the fleet is actually the Historical Society's largest fundraiser. So for those of you who maybe don't know, the Historical Society is completely privately funded by donors, memberships, events. We don't receive millages or anything like that. And we make about 1/3 of our annual operating budget from the blessing of the fleet itself. We had last year, we've expanded over the years to have a whole fleet week of events. We're trying to inject more history into the events, inject more community-free aspects into it. So the boat parade itself is always free. Anybody can register and come and participate. We had 160 vessels in the parade last year. We also had the Odawa Woodland Singers come down. They do a water ceremony and a water blessing and a smudging before the blessing of the fleet. The community band is down there playing the Star Spangled Banner. We had hundreds of people on the dock watching the parade itself. And besides all the people participating in the parade, from the stand-up paddleboarders to, the giant yachts, everybody participates. And a big part of building that whole fleet week of events and advertising that this is happening is the flags in downtown businesses. So in the past couple of years, we have purchased all of those flags and delivered them to the businesses to put up to create a certain feel, to create excitement, and have partnered with businesses in the past to do like signature cocktails and specials leading up to the blessing of the fleet. And those flags are expensive, way more expensive than you would imagine. And because this is a fundraiser for the Historical Society, it really cuts into our bottom line to be spending $500 on these little nautical flags that we then never get back and that fade year after year and end up crumpled in a basement. So your support on that would be really nice.
Thank you, both Bonnie and Beth. Any questions? Comments?
What's the total revenue intake typically of the blessing of the fleet week?
Let's see, prior to COVID, when we had the party as well, we actually made less. After COVID, now that we don't have the party and the expenses from the party, our net was, I believe our net last year was somewhere around $94,000. I believe our highest was $110,000, which again is like 1/3 of our entire yearly operating budget. So it's a huge deal for us.
We've also dovetailed street music with that and pulled the music off of downtown and just have one band on the waterfront.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? No? Can we get a motion to approve? Or a motion, not to approve?
I'll make a motion that we give the chamber and the historical society their $500 each.
Excellent.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Noes? No, okay, motion. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Beth, and for explaining that. And I know you need to get to the
Yeah.
office. Oh, you gotta go to work now. Okay, in the next one is promotions committee directory updates. I think that's me.
Yes.
All of you.
I know. It's lots of Having fun now. Yeah. Okay, so on our directory update, it is finally in to Cindy. We've had to make some adjustments, so I just want to tell you, we pulled out 52, I believe it is. These are non-CBD contractor type businesses. They're sitting up over by Fairview, they're plumbers, they're all kinds of contractors. So we thought that that's best to move them out. No one's looking at as they're walking through town, looking for a plumber or a contractor, or a builder, etc. So we pulled those all out. To fill up space, Cindy has added some Harbor Springs pictures in there. I think she has like fall, summer, possibly winter and spring, as a space filler. So we have approval, we're ready to go. She has the final draft. And she said it'll probably take maybe 2 weeks maximum to get them ready.
We also added a QR code that
Right,
goes
we
directly
did,
to the website to where all of the businesses are as well, the map and listing.
And it looks good. I think it
It looks really
it's
nice.
good, yeah. It's a
I looked at
good.
it last night, it looks very
Yeah.
nice.
Hours and hours and hours of work, Gail and Cora put in this, so
Thank
thank
you
you,
both.
thank you, yeah.
Of course.
Thank you. No, you're welcome.
Do we need to?
Yes.
So the contractors, you pulled them out of the directory.
Mhm.
So where would we find them? I remember once going to the chamber book and looking for some sort of a contractor in the chamber book. So
That
It's
is
still in the chamber
Yeah,
book.
it's still there, right.
Yeah.
It's just the.
Oh, not on
the
the street,
walkability.
not on the
Right,
wayfinding
right,
signs.
fine.
Right. Cool.
Good clarification.
Yeah. We didn't care.
Yeah.
So do we need an approval or you're just?
No, it's done. It's done and ready.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Done and ready, and it's going to depend on something else that Becky will talk about later, is about the repairs. Because they have to coincide together.
Okay.
Okay, so next is the downtown enhancement.
Well, since
Oh, I'm sorry.
Karen asked the question.
Are we in public comment on the former item yet?
Oh, sure, let's,
As you remember, last month, I brought up the fact that I'm not comfortable with you proposed, supporting businesses uptown when you tax downtown. And I have to point out that you're publicly funded, so you tax me, but the services that you provide with my taxes, you're offering them to uptown for free. And I can't remember the scary legal term, but it's illegal. It's an unfair business advantage to them that you tax me and provide it to them. So specifically, the New York, you tax them, but you offer it to Rodrigo's. And Rodrigo's isn't even in the city limits. You tax Epic Salon, but I can't remember the name of the hair salon up there. You're giving it to them for free. You tax Gurney's, but you want to give it to the Harbor Springs IGA for free. You tax Turkey's, but you want to give it to BC Pizza for free, and on and on and on. You're creating an unfair business environment that is frankly illegal.
They've all been removed.
All of those have been removed.
So,
Okay, so.
Just, I didn't want to further you, just,
yeah,
and
and
they've all been removed.
So thank you.
But I don't-
Because my point was, if you wanted to include them, all you had to do was send them a letter and make a figure, and you would have another revenue stream, and I'm not uncomfortable with you if them paying for the service. I'm just uncomfortable with you giving it to them for free.
Right.
And you said at the time you didn't have time to do it. But I would point out to you that my taxes pay for your executive director. She would be the person doing it.
Right, so we have taken care of that.
Okay.
And that was a lot of discussion in there. It was.
But we did take it into consideration and we've discussed it
Right.
ad nauseum, and it has been multiple volunteer hours that have done that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep. Excellent.
Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So here's the Merchants Walkway update. The project did go to bid. And I understand that some bids have been received already. There's a pre-bid meeting on May 14th, that should say, not May 4th. The bids are due May 22nd, And we will be looking at those at our June meeting, and approving, selecting someone, hopefully. Then the request for the budget amendment that will be necessary would be on the June 17th city council meeting. And then the work would begin on September 3rd. The bid documents say it should be substantially complete by October 31st and completed by November 7th. And as we would all want to recall, this is what we're calling the first phase of the project. Plans for the future phase, if they are to be done and when they are to be done, would go in the next budget year or the budget year after that or the budget year after that. But we would get this first phase done this year, not before summer. So that leads us to the next slide. This is what we're looking at over there right now. And it's not my intention to go through the summer to keep it looking like this. I have a couple of suggestions that I've been working with Vanessa on her, she's a landscape architect, and gotten some of her background involved in this, and also talked to Lucas about something that is called creative financing. The first picture is where the water fountain was, and if a solution for that could be, he has ordered a number of cedars that will be used by the skate park at the entrance to it, but they won't be planting until the fall. So we could store those cedars in that hole, which would eliminate the need for all of that orange fencing and barricading around there, and it would just look like a grove of cedars. The other solution, you could use more cedars on the stairs in the second photo. You also could mix the cedars with window boxes full of flowers. So you would see kind of a cascading effect as you looked over there. You see flowers and cedars, and that would make it presentable and something nice to look at for the summer. The cost for the cedars, then we would pay for them, but assuming we can keep them alive, and I'll go over there and water them if I have to, but then we would be reimbursed by DPW from their needs for the skate park in the fall. So I want to move ahead with that, see what I can do to make that look better. I want to give you an update on this. If there's consensus that this is a good plan, we don't necessarily need to vote on it, but I'd welcome any comments and help.
Question.
Yes.
I know from experience and seeing them, cedars aren't necessarily easy to keep alive without water.
Yeah, they have to be watered.
So, we have to be paying DPW to help us with that, or would they just, because they want to keep them alive because no one wants to buy them twice?
I will go water them. I think we can get, maybe work with the National Honor Society, maybe to get some volunteer up there. But I think the key to it is gonna be monitoring it, and if you see the first sign of it, get on it right away.
Absolutely.
We don't wanna lose any of them because it's an investment, so that is a good.
What's the
consideration.
investment to us in the cedars that we would be reimbursed for?
Honestly, Jody, I don't have a number.
Oh,
It depends on how many we buy. Maybe $50 a piece if we buy 20,
oh,
but if we get them reimbursed, that's.
yeah.
It's.
So we're not looking at 20,000, we're looking at
No.
1,000 to
The
2,000.
money that we would, if we included flowers, that would come out of the downtown projects line item. And I would keep that as low as possible, but enough to give it some pop and make it attractive.
And I'll help water too.
Thanks, Gail.
It's the extent of my garden.
I have to go, I'm sorry.
Oh.
We still more.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Do we need, with no motion? to
I
date it?
think just consensus to move forward in this way, and then at the next meeting, we will know what the bids are that are coming in, and we'll have a better idea of where we're going.
Do we have a
Everyone in support. Yeah, do we have a consensus now? Do we have a quorum?
Not
We have
more.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members, so you
Yeah,
still have a quorum.
okay.
Yeah.
Everyone in favor?
Yes,
Yeah.
consensus, nod your head. Okay,
Yep, yeah, sounds great.
so going forward, it's already 9 o'clock, I see, so.
Do we need to buy a really large watering can?
I don't know, well,
Yeah, well,
we're not gonna get into.
there is a
right
cart.
here, so.
There is a card that was bought by the city, given to the garden club.
All right.
And
I'll
Kathy's
find it.
used it before. Volunteer.
This staff water the flowers around the harbor. we can talk with them.
Maybe they could do it.
Yeah, so, yeah, we can figure out that, with the part-time summer staff.
Yeah, we could talk.
Kathy, if you accept it, I'm gonna tell you from experience, you'll never lose it.
No, I've done it a few years, it's, that thing's a heavy thing to follow around.
Okay.
Okay, going on to the Third Street lighting, next slide. Maybe I should learn how to do that. Oh my God, I was afraid of this. So here's a map of Third Street, and these little dots that I put on there are very, very small.
They're big on this one.
Are they big on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see better on that.
Okay, so this is, Gail and I walked this, and this is something that falls under the enhancement committee, who now has an official meeting date, but they did not get to meet this month. But Gail and I did walk this, and the blue dots are the proposed locations for the new lighting. If you want to go to the next one, these are the considerations of placing them here. This is pedestrian scale lighting. Let's not lose fact of that. But because of the existing infrastructure there, it's not like starting over the blank slate. You can't go every 12 feet, you're gonna put your lighting in. Can't do that because you have driveways and you have concrete. Unfortunately, you're gonna, at the corner, if we start at if you go back a second. Okay, if you start on the other side of State Street and you put one at that corner, you're not gonna get another one until you get past Chorus because there's no place to put it. It's all concrete.
Too much.
So then, and all of this is still, Bear Creek I wanted to run this by you all but Bear Creek has to come and look at this and make sure that it's feasible. Lucas told me we can put them wherever we want, but Bear Creek is the one that's gonna install them. So going back to the next slide again. The driveways and the concrete areas interfere, the installation in the public right of way, green spaces, is the purpose for pedestrian scale lighting. So let's picture these lamps coming like this and then focusing over the sidewalk. They're gonna go light the sidewalk as you go down the street. And then you have to consider that you don't want them to compete with there's already lighting on that street that is very high on those poles, and you don't want them to compete with that. So you don't want to put it right next to one of those. They need to be compatible with parking spaces. You got to think of where a parking space is. When you pull in, you're going to open the door and you don't want to be ramming into a pole. You got to be careful of that, although they're not going to be that close, but it is it's a consideration. And we chose the most commercially looking parts of that block going into the future. Lighting is part of the downtown plan, but in the future, because all of that street is in the DDA district, you should look at going all the way to Judd Street and then on the other side of the street as well, up State Street. There are lots of other places that lighting is going to needs to be installed. But this is a good start. It's 10 poles. And unless I would love to hear your comments about where these spaces are, but I don't know a solution to get them. I'd love to hear your comments, or I can see your.
I'm just confused. I guess I'm confused, and I know I missed one of the initial meetings when we originally talked about Third Street lighting, so maybe Jody can enlighten me slightly on it, but I am just surprised that they're only on one side. Going forward this entire time, I thought they'd be on both sides. I thought we'd be splitting the 10 to both sides of the street. Because currently the lighting that we do have there is on both sides of the street. The the holiday
Right.
lighting is on all the Christmas lights are on both sides of the street. So that's just a surprise to me.
Okay.
One of the darkest spots is that when there's like no moon out at night, when I walk the dogs, if I'm downtown in the winter, is like directly across from Gurney's going like a little towards Gardner. It was one of the darkest spots on the street there that I could remember. Also around the Gurney's parking lot, there is, I don't know how many lights in that lot. So it's very well lit right there. Just another thing for consideration. And I'm happy I don't have necessarily those are kind of like my only insights. I don't have a huge amount of it, but I could definitely walk it at some point when it's dark, even though it's a lot later now. Yeah, it's been hard for me to stay awake, but I would be happy to walk it kind of and just see it, because that's my only thought is if we're concerned by where the power is, so we are obviously going to use that going forward, but if we maybe start with them slightly more spaced out and then fill in as needed would be something I was thinking. I don't, that's my
on
thoughts.
both sides of the street.
Yeah, so at
we
least
went down
spacing out,
past
like, you know.
Gardner, and so we have two sitting there, so maybe we
Mhm.
could tighten it up, pull those. Because we had a hard time placing
Right,
10.
we did have a hard time.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, also thinking that like, you know, having 5 on that in between Spring and Gardner seems like a lot with, there's I don't know if there's one, I don't know if there's one at Gardner, but I know at Spring and Third, there's a huge
Yeah,
overhead
there
light.
is.
So having the 2 on the corner there seems very excessive because there's a huge overhead light right there.
Okay, so look, I know you asked Jody, but let me back up
Yeah.
just a second. My understanding was we wanted to do it on the commercial side of the street to get started. But if that's not what we want, then now's the time to change it. So
Yeah,
that's why we
I guess I
stayed on.
That is
the-
what our thought was, because,
I guess, and maybe I missed that one, so.
But they're not in yet, you know,
Yeah.
so.
It is so hard.
I just think that that's
walking
very
to
excessive
place them.
on that side, unless we look at it at night, because that is the most lit block at night on Third Street is probably between Spring and Gardner, and we're adding 5 lights in right there.
So coming from the point of that, the commercial district is.
Yeah.
That's where the retail is, and that's what I understood the need to be, but I'm still gonna say I'm the new girl, so. Back me, I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess
let's-
I just think at night, if we're looking at all of Third Street, the brightest part that currently is right there. Just because of the entire parking lot and the big overhead light there. So I think that, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily. I don't know.
I don't think
Those
we-
are,
well, since we don't need a motion to determine where these are gonna be.
yeah,
If you guys
This is an
wanted to,
update, right.
if you wanted to walk it, I'd be happy to join you,
yeah.
if we can stay up past 10 o'clock.
Oh my God, that's really hard. But yeah, I would be happy to do that because I think it would be beneficial for all of it, to just make sure, because I don't want to put things in redundant places and
We can-
overlight what we already have lit.
We
when
can
could
invite the
actually-
board and see who wants to come and walk it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, not to downplay, you know, the work that you ladies
Oh,
have been doing for certain.
No, but I think we were thinking that.
It was the
retail
commercial.
side, which
Yeah.
was the pre-built plan was. And we have 10 lights. And so and we have to stay pretty close to electrical accessibility.
Mhm.
And we have trees and we have all that, to deal with. So all of a sudden it became like, well, where do you put it?
Where are we gonna put these things?
Where are we gonna put these things?
Well, I mean, just because I feel like we have 10 doesn't necessarily mean we have to install 10 right
Right,
now.
we didn't, I think,
Right.
we
Yeah, I
had to take one
And
out.
truthfully, when Gail and I were finished, we found 9 spaces.
Yeah,
And then we thought, well, the only place to put the other 10 one was on the other side of State Street. And I included that in this when I did this up, because I kind of like the idea of when you go up State Street, then you see the district, there's some continuity on both sides of the street. So I put the 10th one in.
the only thing I think would be weird with that is directly north of that has one of the big bulb lights. So it'd be a little like,
Yep, it would be
different.
intermittent.
Yeah, so.
Let's
We'll just
walk
walk
it. Let's walk
Yeah,
it.
it's fine, I'm just
At
another,
night.
yeah,
At night,
I will make it happen.
yeah,
Make
let's
it
walk
happen.
it at
Yeah.
night.
Maybe not this
You
week.
take your time and you get it right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's.
right.
Absolutely,
That's
yeah. No, that's fine, I like that. I mean, besides that, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's gonna be nice. I think it's gonna be definitely beneficial. I just think that we should spend a little more time before we put them in the
Right.
ground. So, and
Excellent.
happy to
Like,
go.
if I had one suggestion, it's maybe put a plan together of all the spots where you'd like to see lights, and then as you have the funding, pick
Add
the
them there,
first, pick the
yeah.
first 5 you wanna do, and the next 5.
I think that's a great idea. This is making me a little nervous to be doing it kind of a piecemeal, like a spot kind of thing, but it can't be helped right now, but.
And just make a plan with all the blue dots that you want, and then fund them as you can.
Okay. The wayfinding sign repairs, the final estimate to get these signs repaired this year is over $9,000. And that includes removal and reinstallation of 2 of the major signs. It's touch-up paint, one of the signs doesn't have a finial on it. They're gonna also do some painting on site. When you take a sign out, you have to send a guy out to do it, 2 guys out to do it, and they pick it up, they take it back to the shop, then they have to go reinstall it. It's quite expensive, and there's $3,000. Another sign needs to be totally redesigned, and that's the one outside of New York. been hit by a truck, I'm told, several times, and it's bent. And there's no solution to that, except possibly making it smaller.
Is it the same truck?
I don't think the truck driver shows up and says, hey, I did it, I don't know. So making it smaller would mean that it wouldn't, Lucas and I talked about this, it wouldn't go into the street just to that degree, so the truck wouldn't hit it. So there is some money that needs to be done in this. We have 3,000 in the budget for wayfinding. Some of that will go to, the work that Gail and Cora have been doing on the directory. So that makes it even less. I'm going back and forth with Simplicity right now, trying to lower this and see what the minimum that has to be done is, but we certainly want these things to look nice. So the remainder of the money would have to come out of downtown projects. And I just wanted to keep you updated that everything costs money and this is how it works. So I'm gonna try and get it down a little bit more from 9,000, but be prepared because it could be that much.
We have 10 grand budgeted for downtown sidewalks.
Yes, we do. And I need to talk to Nick about that. I don't know, I don't think we're gonna spend that this year. But I also think we gave the city council $5,000 for, and I haven't seen that transaction happen. So part of that, I'm assuming, will come out of there. So I'm not worried about the bottom line in the budget. I'm worried about trying to stay within the line items that as they were described. So I know we're not gonna go over, but it would be nice, you know, I did not prepare the budget. There was no director here. Everyone did the best that they could.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm trying to keep you updated as these things are happening, and next year I'll feel more confident about spending things because I'll know what was put in there.
Well, we can always reallocate from the budget, just to even it out so that that gives a framework for Becky.
I just don't want to do anything, you know, I'm used to a budget where I change things in line items all the time. I'm
Well, this is
still
not-
new. I don't, this has to happen.
Well, this is
Yeah,
not,
this has to get done.
I don't, there's nothing we can do about
I'm
it.
just gonna do the best I can to keep it as low as I can.
What's your thought, Cora?
Hmm?
You look-
No, I was just thinking, I was thinking about where the $5,000 went. And I mean, also, you know, if that was all spent, if we're getting any of that back.
Yeah, I need to find out about that.
Some
I
of
don't
those,
think
some of
we
those
know
things,
that.
which is fine, I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
we
and
didn't
I
before
think
that.
that definitely needs to go for sidewalks. The other thing I could think is, you know, just reaching out and asking the city
Yeah.
is there sidewalk repairs that need to be made this year, that need to happen? Or, you know, just before we reallocate the funds, but besides that, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts.
I'm just gonna ask, any public comment on?
Yeah, this is the first major repair of these signs that they were put in place.
It is.
So that's,
Yeah.
sure, it looks like a lot, but
Yeah.
over the number of years, it's
8 years,
bad, yeah.
8 years. So we could budget, if you think, I guess. we
Well,
could
$1,000
a year.
$1,000 a
Right.
year for repair.
Right, right. We need to do that, maintenance.
Any other comments? Yes.
Before I leave, the night sky protection for signage was something that came up, I brought it up at the PC meeting about 2-3 weeks ago. And I got a really nice response. We had sort of gone in the direction of maybe the Irish sign not being lit all night long. And so from the owners of the building now, they're going to order some dimming ability for it. And we're gonna be able to dim it in the evening. So that was a good success so far. But the night sky requirements for your signage, for any kind of lighting and everything like that, I think the whole town would love some of that. Thank you.
If you're leaving, I'm gonna throw this in out there right now. We're gonna talk about the Michigan Downtown Association workshop that's coming up. But there is a workshop on May 30th. And one of the sessions at that workshop is about dark sky and night sky lighting builds. So more information should be coming to all the practitioners that will be there. So curious that came up at the same time.
Yeah, as well.
Oh, when?
Going back to the lighting project, the tree lights then are dismantled and removed.
They will be, yes.
So what was the price tag for doing those?
I will have to defer to someone.
Doing the the Christmas, the
Right.
holiday lighting in the trees. $2,500.
Memory, 35,000.
No, no,
No.
that's how much would have been spent originally. And had we continued on, it was $10,000 a year between, however you wanna look at it, but you could budget $10,000 a year for that. What
I'm
we,
confused by the answer. We sometime in the future, a long time ago, spent $35,000 putting in the tree lights, and then we spent 10,000 a year since then maintaining them.
it was, if you looked at it over the course of 8 years, how long the lighting's been in there, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong. It was $35,000 for all of the electrical and the lights to be put on the trees. There was a lot of repair work over the course of those 8 years.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why we decided it was just not financially feasible for us to continue in the same route that we were. If you looked at it over 8 years or over 5 years, it was gonna cost us 50 some $1,000s.
I
An average of
know.
10,
I asked Square Electric why they didn't do that project. Why was Bear River doing? Because they're the big electrical contractor here in town.
Bear River came in at a lower price.
Squire tells me John Smith, Squire, the managing office manager there, tells me that he told you not to do it, that it wouldn't work. So I'm not blaming any of you because probably none of you were involved in the project at the time.
I was.
But I really hate it when we spend enormous sums of money and then we put it in a dumpster. I mean, that's waste. I don't like waste. And here's the problem I have with the DDA is, and you guys have all said it yourselves, this is not my area of expertise. So you override people who tell you that something won't work, and then you end up wasting our money. And you collect me $2 a day, every day, for all 4 buildings that I have downtown. And I'm sorry if this is going to annoy you, Cora, but it's $8 a day times 15 years is $45,000 out of my wallet. Then I might as well pile in the parking lot and set on fire and toast marshmallows in. If you're going to do things like that. And then I look at the DPW and I say, they could have done all of this and they wouldn't make those mistakes. So.
The DPW from a labor standpoint would have cost us an awful lot more than what
We wouldn't be making mistakes where we then dumpster things.
we don't really know that.
I don't think topics up for discussion.
I think
Right.
that city-
Thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I am not done. Do not interrupt me ever again. I don't think that the city electrical department would make those kind of mistakes when the other electrical company in town is telling you that it won't work. They also would have said it won't work. So.
Well, we didn't have a piece of paper saying this won't work.
And I think, thanks, Wendy.
Thank you for listening, but if you don't have a piece of paper, is a very poor excuse. I'm not accepting it.
Okay.
But I do recognize that you are all citizen volunteers who said, yes, I want to do this. But I really object to wasting money. And then I flash back to the first DDA and all of those cute little white signs that said, little cottage designs this way, Gurney's this way. And where are they today? They're in a dumpster somewhere. And you continually do projects that waste money. I don't mind spending money, I mind wasting money. But thank you.
We understand. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. And where do we go to next? Your comments?
Yes.
Your update?
Hopefully out of here.
Okay, we're going to go quick here. So, this month I did take a vacation. kind of.
What?
I
I
don't
went
think we approved that.
I went to, I know, first vacation I've had in 20 years. I went to Charlotte to visit my son for 2 weeks. I worked a little bit while I was there. And I also went to some cute towns, Morrisville, Statesville, and because I just can't stand to stay out of cute downtown, so. Worked on the ongoing projects. We did get regular meetings scheduled for the promotions and the enhancement committees. And then I have worked with Rinaldi on the flower purchase. We're talking about red, white, and blue because it's the election year. Red geraniums, maybe some lobelia, and we finalized the DDA mailing list. So next month, we're gonna get these flowers planted, and the date is Sunday, May 19th. And I met with Jackie on this. Jackie, what time did you say? Because I think the DDA said a different time, and I'm nervous about this now.
We're fine anytime that morning. So
Okay.
like when we took them out, it was 8 a.m., but we can do a little later, just whatever.
Okay, so I think you and I talked about 10, but the DDA had talked about noon. So the earlier the
I can
better.
push it up.
The earlier the better?
Yeah, it's my only day off
Okay.
all week.
So we're gonna
So-
go for the 10 o'clock meeting, because the more we can have their help, the better, so I'll do the background to change that, so. I'm gonna continue walking around downtown, just getting nicer out. We're gonna use the new email list to create the downtown map, so we have that ready to hand out. We're still gonna work on Merchants Walkway, we're still gonna work on Third Street lighting. And begin the regular committee meetings, you can see last Tuesday of the month, 11 a.m. for promotions, and the first Wednesday of the month, 9 a.m. for enhancement. And next, and I'm gonna go quickly here, this is the information about the Michigan Downtown Association workshop. It is, you can go online to see it. It's on Thursday that, we're gonna start, we get a pointer boat tour, thank you to, am I saying staff routes or to the pier for their sponsorship? And a historic tour of, walking tour of Harbor Springs that afternoon. Gail has been working on that because of her affiliation with the museum. And this also satisfies something that is in our downtown plan. One of the goals was to create a walking tour that would be shared with the Historical Society. And once we get this developed, we can check that off the list. And I know she's gonna do a great job that day, so. And then there's a networking event that night. Friday is the schedule of, workshop, or it's the workshop schedule and the seminars. You can go to Michigan Downtown Association .com to get that schedule. If you're interested in attending, these workshops are geared to practitioners, but it doesn't mean you couldn't learn something. And if you're interested in attending as a board member, there is money in the budget for that. So it's $175. It's well worth it for the day. If you want to go to the next one. Let me know. I think I put a date in there, May 24th. Let me know by then and I'll get you registered. The boat tour is sold out, so I can't offer that to you anymore. The people are staying at the Colonial Inn that are coming. We expect any place from 70 to 90 people to come for this.
What was the date of the workshop?
It's-
Sorry.
May 30th. And 31st, yeah. And the 30th is the day before when we started, so. Then, the other thing is that we are having this DDA 101 board training, and that will be on May 30th as well. It will be from 10 to noon. And I would like to know from all of you by the 17th, if you will be able to attend that. It's gonna be given by our board chair, who has her own consulting firm. She's got tons and tons of credentials. It's been working with DDAs for years. I think it's a great time, but soon, just because we just got this funding approved. Lots of new people, new staff. I'm really excited to be able to give this to you, and there's money in our budget for that comes out of training as well. So if you could let me know, if you can be here, I would love to see full attendance on that day. If you have any questions.
You went through that fast. Good job.
Yeah, I can go through things fast if I have to.
Let me know if you can fit in another boat trip because it's so early in the season. I'm sure Kristen would be, that
Okay.
would help you.
I will, thank you. I think it could be problematic, but Jody, thank you.
All right.
Any board member comments?
I just have one quick thing. My new boss, his family is the developers of something called Aquapots. And it was similar to what Margaret and I have been emailing back and forth about self-watering planners. And I think it's something that
I have one that's spectacular.
you do.
Oh my gosh.
What it costs you.
Of course I do.
Okay. Because are they the best?
They are the best. I went shopping for more yesterday. You water them once a week.
How heavy are they? That's my,
Two versions of that. The original aqua pots are heavy. Mine is a ceramic. It's Vietnamese, stunning. But they now sell just the inserts that you can put in any appropriately sized pot. So they also have aqua pot lights, which are more of a manufactured product versus the ceramic. I saw the quote from Chris Shepler that he said when they put them on the docks at the ferry company, that was the first year, it was so expensive, and they saved it in the staff time, because they only had to water once a week versus every other day. And they are amazing.
and they're not too expensive. They're not,
The inserts you can buy at Home Depot now, it's Aquapots, Jack Barnwell did this with Proven Winners, and you can buy the inserts to put in anything. They are absolutely a lifesaver as far as watering.
so Jack Barnwell, somebody that created,
Jack Barnwell designed it with Proven Winners. Yeah,
well, no wonder, because my boss,
I
Dan
know.
Barnwell.
I knew
So,
that.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
So just something to consider for,
Something that we had talked about too in the past when we talked about stuff like this, doing another thing is storage. Yeah,
Oh, good time.
is a large issue, because I love the idea, but like the logistics of it, I came back with in an email to someone, I think an email to Becky, where I just said logistically, like that might be something we need to like plan for, like. If we can find them, that's great. If we can get them to maybe even donate some of them that we could advertise that we use, donate part of it.
well, I'm gonna push Sam.
Yeah, that would be really cool, but I think that we also logistically need to think about.
Yeah,
This is something the enhancement committee needs to get on.
Yep.
And that's when we have a
Yep.
meeting.
I just
And then
wrote it
we're
down
gonna
to
talk
that.
about this, is come out of streetscape money,
Yep.
so it could be budgeted for next year, and it would look lovely. It's something that I
Yeah.
thought about as well, Margaret had, is like, if you put them all the way through town, Bay Street, State Street, every place, then you define your district. And
Yeah,
I think this is a great idea, especially if they're commercial grade and could last several years, so.
yeah, that was my other question too.
And maybe you keep two in your basement, or you keep somewhere,
I don't have a basement.
well.
I wish I did. I would offer to keep things in there. for
Might be
people.
wrong.
We could always check out the DPW.
I haven't talked to Lucas about that.
Further discussion.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about that.
In the city council meeting on Monday, they talked about, the outdoor display of goods, and I just won't wanna like skip past it. They sent it to the DDA for a discussion, and I definitely think that we have stuff to say about it, but we talked about discussing it again in the enhancement committee and then bring it back, so I think that within a couple weeks, at our next meeting, we'll be able to send some information to city council about that, because I definitely think it's a good thing to be brought up, but, I think we need a little more clarification from everyone on exactly what it is, because what the code says currently and what is actually allowed, what was allowed prior to the code as well.
And Jeff and I did talk about that yesterday. We decided not to put it on the agenda for today, but
Yep.
next month.
Yep, just something to be thinking about for anyone who's has not paying attention.
Excellent. Yes,
Sorry for being late this morning, I apologize. I just want to let everybody know, at the Colonial Inn, you reminded me, next Wednesday, we're doing a chill on the road at the Colonial Inn with the Historical Society and Gypsy Distilleries. That's from 4 to 6 on Wednesday, the 15th. You can see rooms. It's it's always a great event. We've done it a couple of years, and anybody who hasn't seen the Colonial Inn recently should come. And our new community guide is out. I have trunk full, but I'll be coming around to our businesses. You will all be mailed them as well, and hopefully leaving some here. But anyway, just wanted you to know we have them.
excellent.
So we're ready for summer.
Yes,
Really quick, Harbor Master Building renovation, we are going out to bid on that probably early June. And we're probably gonna start that project in early fall if we get the bids back that we want. So what that means is from September through May, those bathrooms are gonna be closed. So I know that's not our busy season here, but just something that it is an issue that comes up.
Taste of Harbor Springs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, so those bathrooms will be closed through the renovation process. So something to start thinking about,
Oh, festival of work.
yeah, we do have, the bathrooms at the beach, we could keep open at Fort Park, but of
Just
course they're not.
send them to the pier. We're open, just, it's fine.
Just something to think about going
Yeah.
forward. Maybe, create a solution.
What's another 5,000 people need?
Well, maybe don't buy something. Have a drink.
Oh, yeah.
Has the city considered portable?
We haven't gotten that far yet, because we don't 100% know when they're gonna be starting.
Hey, talk to Victor when you're done.
But it is, I
Time to
mean,
go.
I'm glad you brought that up, thank you.
Thanks. So just one last time, any public comment? No? Excellent. Okay, ready for adjournment?
All adjourned.
Yep, adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for attending.
Yeah.
Um,